Ah. Can you see that?
Yep.
Amazing. Right.
Do you want us all to mute, or should we just stay on?
Oh,
because
don't know.
we want to, yeah?
No, I mean, butt in. As long as no one's burping or anything.
Okay.
Live now. Okay. It's lacto-fermenting. And it's hot sauce. So this kind of thing. Just in case no one knew what it was.
Wait on. We're still seeing the getting into lacto-fermented hot sauce.
Oh, yes. No, I've still got that up.
Oh,
just
right.
Sorry, I was just holding the demo bottle up to the camera.
Yeah, but we're watching a screen of your...
Oh, are you? So I can only see right.
Well, I am. Do I need to change my view?
Don't know. Let me there's a picture of it coming up later.
Okay.
Anyway, hot sauce that you put on eggs, like sriracha, you know, Scotch bonnet hot sauce, that kind of stuff. I started doing it in beginning of the year, I think, and I just at one point thought, I wonder what else I can ferment. A bit like we all do at some point. I can't remember exactly what started with sauce, but I think I probably had some or saw a video or something. Oh, okay, let's give that a whirl. So I made it a couple of times, and a bit like homebrew, it wasn't rubbish first time round. So it was relatively forgiving, I think. And I think having a background as a home brewer, we've kind of got some advantages already. It's literally the door. Hold on a sec. Hold on.
It's the last time we see him, ever.
You don't say birthday boy.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's very kind.
Yeah, we're gonna
The last page of the presentation.
I'll pop back round. Like an hour.
Just Matt's not well at the moment.
Oh, all right.
He doesn't really want to pass any germs on to you.
Oh.
He's gone down or whatever. But, you know, so don't worry about it. But we just want to pass.
Oh, that's very
Lovely beers.
We're all turning up for the party that Steve forgot he'd invited them to.
Yeah. Taxi.
I'm gonna have to find some hold music for this.
Bloody hell. Sorry about that. The neighbours putting around a birthday present. My birthday today, kids.
Oh, happy birthday.
Whose birthday?
Happy birthday, Steve.
Birthday.
Thanks.
Oh, what a way to spend your
Happy
birthday, you
birthday.
sad bastard.
Happy birthday.
We've made you do a
Thanks.
presentation.
Huh?
We made you do a presentation on your birthday.
You
How horrible.
bastards.
What's that?
No, I knew it was coming up. And
What, your birthday?
I remembered from last year it's roughly the same.
There's a
roughly the same
pattern
day,
here somewhere.
right? It's beginning of October sometime. I can't remember when it is. Joking apart, in my mid-40s, I forgot my age for an entire year. I got it wrong. That's another story. And nothing to do with still being hungover. All right. We can edit that out, right, Daz?
That was your Keith Richards
No,
face.
totally keeping that in.
All right. Yeah, so just wondered what fermenting other stuff was like. I think I tried sauerkraut once and didn't get it quite right, but then I did hot sauce and it was fine. So yeah, like home brewing, we seem to have quite some good advantages of cleaning and sanitizing everything, which is paramount in this as well. So let's go to a more interesting slide. The short version, if anyone wants to make hot chili sauce in a nutshell, the quick version is stuff a load of chilies in a jar and garlic, in fact, in that picture, because that you need garlic. cover it with salty water, brine, stick a lid on / airlock, and let it run for 2 weeks minimum. And there seems not to be a maximum. I'm a member of a whole load of hop fermenting Facebook groups and all that stuff, and exactly the same as home brewing groups. Everyone's got an opinion. I was aware that was going to go out in public, so I just tempered my. Everyone's got one.
Steve, you say 2 weeks minimum, and there doesn't seem to be a maximum. What changes in that time?
Yeah, so 4 weeks seems to be the optimum, and in the references, I'm going to put a link to quite a longish article about the 4 stages of lacto fermenting. So it goes through a cycle, and it needs to kind of complete after 4 weeks. So 4 weeks. So 2 weeks, you'll have something nice. 4 weeks, it will have properly finished, a little bit different again. And then after that, it doesn't really do anything other than condition or age or just mature a little bit. So it doesn't like autolysize if you leave it in the jar. And there's Tabasco ferment for 3 years, apparently, in barrels. So all the fermenting homebrew groups like to have a little competition. This has been fermented for 18 months, for 20 years, and I've literally seen ones fermented for longer than that, or whatever. So it doesn't seem to have any adverse effect. So it doesn't matter if you kind of forget or you run out of time to go to the next stage of processing it and turning it to sauce. So you can just leave it like chugging away in the jar. I've got a link to a 5-minute video. I'll show you that later. Just let's get started. So that's the short version. Lactobacillus, which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, and some people in the group make some amazing sour beers of various sorts. So lactobacillus is the bacteria, not yeast, the bacteria that converts the wort into, or converts the sugar in the wort into lactic acid or something. But in the food fermenting, that's all the fermentation there is. So it just produces lactic. And as we may well know, it has a nice clean sour taste. So I think Phil even mentioned that earlier. We've got made lots of unintentional sours, probably like we all have. And it's fine. You can like put some fruit in it, or like chuck a bottle of Orval in it, and you've got a beer all over again. So it's quite forgiving in that. It lowers the pH, which in a couple of slides' time, I'll show you how that helps to keep everything shelf stable, exactly like a sour. And lactobacillus is used in stuff like Berliner Weisse, goes in yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, and tapachi, which is a fermented pineapple skins drink that is very tasty, and it's like a Brazilian thing, I think. Loads of recipes for all of this stuff, by the way, all over YouTube. If you want to get more involved, that's what lacto is. Henceforth, lacto, not lactobacillus, just takes too long, too many syllables. So anyone who's made a kettle sour, I haven't made a kettle sour, but anyone who has told me that you need to keep the air out. So lactoferment is anaerobic. So in a kettle sour, people have like put the cling film over the top of the liquid and up the sides of the kettle and leave it for overnight or a couple of days at mid-30s, mid-40s. Is that right? Something like that, isn't it? So the hot sauce is not dissimilar. Keep everything under the liquid, so under the brine, under the salty water, which was in the last slide. And you can keep it under the water by, a lot of people use glass weights because they're inert and they not like they're like unlike plastic, they don't kind of take on any taints or anything else. You can also keep the food submerged with big fat slices of onions, like cabbage leaf. There's some pictures later on as well. But the main thing is to keep the air out, because it does, the seeds pop out and like go to the top. That's generally probably all right, because once it gets fermenting, not dissimilar again to beer, that the CO2 will begin to push the oxygen and any air out, so it should purge it. And you'll see in this pic on the right, so that's just a quick screen grab from one of the Fermenting Hot Sauce Facebook groups. If you can't read that, if that's too small. It's kind of putting paid to lots of people like infighting about whether you weigh the ingredients when you're adding your brine or whether you don't weigh it. So many fights in some of these forums about that. So I'm just going to read it. I've been fermenting this way for years, not had a single bad batch. Not sure why so many make it overly complicated. This is why I did my opening slide. I stuff the jars to the max, pour in my 4% brine, which I make, and I don't mind shit. I fill to the top. Like beer, you want a small headspace so that there's not too much gas to purge, basically. Burp it a few times the first several days, and then it's in the basement for, there you go, for a year or more. I mean, that's unnecessary, but don't get me started. So it's fairly straightforward. Another one of the main points about it is I've put 3.5% brine here because it's kind of goes down the middle, and the brine, the percentage of the brine is fairly forgiving as well. This guy's probably used 4% brine because where he's stuffed all those vegetables in, there's water in those vegetables, and the brine gets soaked up into the vegetables, and it can dilute what liquid is in that jar, which may not let it ferment properly. If you go too high with your brine, like beyond 5% for chilies, you'll get a slower ferment, which, much like beer, risks other pathogens getting in. The reason it's brine, unchlorinated water, exactly the same reason as unchlorinated water in beer. It will give like that an off flavor. I haven't tried it without to find out, but it's one of the top rules which everyone does agree on, so I'll experiment with that later, and so can you. And not surprisingly, Tesco Ashbeck is the water of choice for bottled unchlorinated water. The salt basically will kill any other pathogen and let the lacto take over, you know, on its own. Think of the word, and include the weight of the veg or not. It doesn't matter. I don't think it really doesn't seem to. As part of the recipes, if you're going to add, another main point, if you're going to add any fresh fruit, don't put it in the ferment, because it just ferments all the flavor out. It's really annoying. You can add it later on and you can get a nice flavor. So if you want to add like Scotch bonnet and mango, so you've got some sweetness and to balance out the hotness, do that later. We'll get to that. Clean and sanitize everything like good brewers. comparing this. Oh, it's quite big. So there's no picture for this one. Ran out of time. So much like any other cooking, clean all your vegetables in water, chop them all up. Smashing the garlic, with a kitchen knife, like banging the side of the knife on top of the garlic to bust it out. You don't need to chop it up. You don't need to put it in whole. It releases the flavor, and there's a chemical reaction that takes place when air hits whatever's in garlic that releases that flavor much better. And that helps, apparently, even if you're having it underwater. I realize I'm saying. Do or do not remove the chili seeds. It doesn't make any difference because it's not the seeds that have got the heat. The seeds are hot because they're in touch with the white veins, or whatever you call them, on the inside of the chilies, the stuff that you can kind of slice out in general just for looks, to make it look fancy. But if you want to take the heat out, then you need to, membrane is the word I'm after. You want to slice out all the membrane as well, and the seeds, and that will take the heat out. But it's a hot sauce. You can dilute it down a bit later. And you can either sieve out the seeds later, which is after the ferment. We'll have a look at that in a little bit. Or you can blitz the whole thing up in a blender, like a fancy blender. Some blenders are like super fast and they'll blitz the seeds, but most blenders of a normal home kitchen will just whiz it all up into a nice sauce with seeds in it, and it's up to you, really. Some of the commercial ones are full of seeds and some aren't. Whatever you like. I think I've said this already, but stuff it all down with a little headspace, that should say, and cover it with brine. Ferment room temperature, so it doesn't need to be any particular temperature. It's saying that I think something around 20 normal room temperature is fine, and out of sunlight, so you might recognize that kind of fermentation method as well. Keep the sun off it. Number 2, as with beer, no peaking, really, because if you start taking the lid off, we're all familiar, crap gets in, dust, fruit flies, air, whatever it is, and it'll muck it up. I mean, you can peek if the jar is transparent, of course, so that's not cheating. And it's quite useful to see what's going on, maybe. So the pictures on the side there is day 1, it's nice and clear with your veg. By day 7, it does go cloudy, and that's the lacto doing its thing, essentially. And it will bubble. It's not an active fermentation, really. You don't need a blow-off tube or anything like that. It's quite a gentle few bubbles, just like come up. And about, again, as after about 4 weeks, it will clear out again, and the dead bacteria, the spent bacteria will sink to the bottom, much like yeast sinks to the bottom when it's done its job and it's consumed all the sugar that it needs to. That's part 2 of that. So a couple of things can go wrong. So if you do open the lid and have a look, you'll get more than likely calm yeast at the top picture there. It's fine, and you can scoop it out with a spoon, sanitized spoon, and you should be okay. But normal mold, black, green, fuzzy, whatever color mold, get rid, because it's not, it's going to be bad for you. It's going to taste like rubbish. as well. But yeah, it's dangerous really, and any forum will tell you the same thing. A lot of pictures with, is this infected? That old one. So that happens as well. And sometimes it's, that's calm, yeast, you're fine. And the other time it's, dude, just bin it and do it again. Because it's relatively, it's a cheap trial and error, really. It's only, well, it's probably about the same cost as a batch of beer, maybe. Chilies are, what are they, 15 quid a kilo or something? And depending on how many you use, there's recipes later.
Steve, on the previous slide, you spoke about where you noted using an airlock or putting the lid on. If you just put the lid on, are you putting that lid on loose so excess pressure can escape?
Yes, no, good point. Thanks, I didn't say that. Yeah, you can either burp it each day, but that does risk a bit of ingress, I guess. I mean, I've done it with those Kilner jars with the snap-on lid thingy, the clip-on lid, but left it open, so not fully clamped it down, just secured it at the top and put some kitchen roll, folded over several times across the top, and then elastic banded it down to keep bugs and dust and shizzle out, but let the gas out, kind of thing. And that's been fine generally. I mean, a lot of the time it's down to your sanitation processes and stop putting your dirty fingers in it.
Is there much of a consensus on the types of jars? Because I've seen some where they have the sort of fancy blow off as part of the jar, and then others like the bit you showed a minute ago where someone's just loosely putting on the lid and burping it for the first few days.
Yeah, there's normal homebrew airlock, the little ones, are cheap and cheerful as long as you've got a lid with a hole in it, I suppose, that fits the jar. I did find that those are quite difficult to track down unless you're buying the Kilner fermentation kit, which Jane was bought because he looked like he was going to get serious with that. And they work really great because they're silicone and they fit the jar and they've got an airlock on top and it's homebrew friendly, if you like. Jars are fine. It's not as much of an expensive rabbit hole as home brewing. There's not so much shiny gear unless you go commercial and buy lots of other big stuff. But you can, I mean, hot sauce goes quite a long way, so you don't need to make gallons of the stuff. But yeah, you're right, Raf. I did find it's quite difficult to find good ones, and I did try making holes in the lid with a screwdriver, etc., and making them neat and tidy, of course, afterwards. But of course, by bending the lid and then exposing it to liquid or whatever else afterwards, I got some little rust lines underneath it, and I wasn't entirely sure whether to use that again. So I still really haven't got proper
Steve,
ones.
you use the it'd be a bit of an expensive option, but do you know the firm Zilla? They do the yeast collection vessel, which is a sort of 1 litre plastic vessel, which has a tri-clamp option on the top and so on.
Oh yeah, you can put it on.
One of those would work quite well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
But it's a bit OTT, as you say. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
a Kilner jar with the ones with the metal lids with a hole punched in that with a grommet and if you wanted
exactly.
would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, those work if you get the right lid. I did buy the Kilner. I got some Kilner jars and thought the ones with the flip top lids and the clip, and then they and Kilner sell the silicone lids with the airlock for like 8 quid, and I was like, oh, brilliant. Of course, it arrived as too big; it doesn't fit their own jar size. You have to buy the massive 35 quid one. So, heaven's sake. Anyway, work in progress. The lids and airlock, but suffice it to say, you can do it safely without an airlock. and with a jar lid. That's not mixing my metaphors too closely.
I mean, do you boil the jar and everything beforehand and so on?
Yes, yeah, I did do all of that on the stove in the boiling water kind of business. In fact, all the gear for that. In fact, I think I even did it in the oven as well at some point. But yeah, I was slightly paranoid about having making sure it was more sterile than for home brewing for some reason, because I think it seemed to spoil more quickly early on if you had any air anywhere near it, or your food popped up again above the water. And it did happen like once or twice.
So the yeasts that people are finding coming through, when you said the white yeast can sometimes grow on the surface, is that just wild yeast then?
Yeah, I think, yeah, calm yeast is just wild yeast, and it doesn't taste of anything, and it doesn't really taint it, but some people claim it did a bit. I've never not mixed it in and done a side by side, to be honest. But it might be one of those marginal things that some people notice and but relatively harmless. But yeah, the bottom picture, mold, no thanks. You need to throw that away. Which brings us to cross-contamination. So the same Lactobacillus family of bacteria that ferments the hot sauce, ferments the vegetables, is the same bacteria that creates sour beers, and that's fine if you're intentionally wanting to create a sour beer. But if not, then best practice applies. So use a separate set of equipment, maybe a separate fermenting fridge. Also double down on your cleaning and sanitation regime. Make sure you're meticulous. Follow the manufacturer's instructions on things like Starsan or iodophores for the concentration solution, for the contact time, and then let the equipment air dry. I'll pop a link in the description below to a video on the Sui Generis YouTube channel where he explains how Starsan kills bacteria and yeast, and to make sure that you're using it properly. Also worth reading are the back and forth comments below his video, where he does a lot of explaining with someone who takes him up on his thesis about it. But he's a scientist, so he can explain it much better than I can. Post-processing. So once it's done, and I'm gonna illustrate this a little bit later with a very short video off the YouTubes, because it doesn't explain itself enormously well in text. However, got your jar of stuff, pour it into a saucepan through a sieve, so you keep the peppers and everything in the sieve. Retain the can you see my hands? Retain the brine in the saucepan, because you're going to use that to like thin out the sauce in a bit. So take the veg, put it in in a blender like that, like a normal blender thingy, or even with a hand blender, hand wand thingy, whatever they're called, and get it to some kind of like smooth enough consistency, and then add some brine just to kind of get it to the right consistency. At that point, you can bottle it straight away at that point, and eat it fresh, and it's got probiotics in it still from the lacto, the good bacteria, but you'll need to keep it in the fridge, and probably not with a super tight lid, because it will ferment still, apparently slowly, a bit like long conditioning for wild beers that you might have. They'll just tick over very slowly at some point and then break the bottle. No one wants that. Or it will spray up in your face when you take the lid off. No one wants that either. So you can either, once you've blitzed it up with your pan blender or in the blender thingy, and you've got sauce with all the seeds in it and all the stuff, You can either then restrain it back into a saucepan, which you will then heat up through a sieve, and then you can push it through with the back of a spoon, or if you've got a food mill, and I think there'll be a food mill in the video in a little second, which will basically push the mush left. So all the bits, basically, the liquid will go through the sieve, and you're left with all the bits in the sieve. So you can either sieve it through so you get a lovely smooth sauce, or blitz it in a fancy blender, which will smooth it out as well. But that's expensive to get a blender that does that. It's probably the most expensive bit of the thing. A lot of American sites, particularly, have a Vitamix, like sites, sauce makers in the groups recommend a Vitamix. As, oh, that looks good. If you could like blitz it all up, there won't be that much. If they've got any at John Lewis or something, they haven't got them at John Lewis because you have to get them from somewhere special, and they're like 700 quid or something. Anyway,
I've got a still expensive, but a sort of copy of a Vitamix called an
Ooh.
Omni Blend,
Have you
and
got?
seems to be nearly as good. It's
Yeah.
a lot cheaper.
Oh, nice. What was that? What makes that?
Omni Blend.
Ooh. Oh, nice. I might have to find oh, giving them away. I'll find a link for that later if you would be so kind.
Yeah, I'll look for that.
So there, so part the then you would pass. So if you want to keep it shelf stable, pasteurize it. So that's bringing it up to, and I didn't put the chart in because I lost track of the chart.
I've posted it.
Thank you very much. Perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. I can't see the whole thing. Do you want to read it? I've done it to I remember what I did, but I can't remember the whole chart. But I think it's something like 10 minutes at 70 degrees or something like that, or increasingly shorter time when you get to 80 degrees. But the more you heat it, the more it kind of impairs the flavor a bit like it says on sides of tomato soup cans or beans. Do not boil, otherwise it may impair the flavor. I believe it says. And I also haven't stood in boiling water for 10 minutes either before Mark Sanderson chips in with that one. So that's my stove, and in the front is one of my Speidel fermenters that is now co-opted for hot sauce. My nephew got married and they wanted hot sauce for 200 people. Oh, shit. But I did them in the, oh, you can't see me, can you? I'll show you later. I think it's in a slide later, but I used, instead of using the normal hot sauce bottles, I used like whiskey miniature sized ones, which were more difficult to fill, but a bit more manageable in size. So that's it on the back there. There was like 10 liters, I think, of hot sauce in the end. And even with that airlock on the fermenter, it barely did any bubbling. Really, it just kind of chugged away a bit. So that's what that looks like. Pasteurizing it on the stove. And at this point, for food safety, I don't know if most people, maybe some people have got a digital thermometer, check the temperature, super useful. Also super useful for making marmalade and jam, by the way, this year. And if you've got a digital pH meter or something that can check the pH as well, you want to get it below 4.6 for food safe, which is the same with beer, really, to get, but that's botulism safe, below 4.6, I believe. But ideally 3.5, apparently. Similar again to Saudi. So many beer parallels going on.
How would you adjust it?
Yes, sorry, very good point. Yeah, I missed that bit out. You can adjust it down with vinegar. White vinegar will do it, not malt vinegar. Maybe cider vinegar, which has got a little bit of a nicer flavour to it as well, and bit by bit, really, until you hit the right pH. And if it becomes a bit acidy, then you could sweeten it up with like brown sugar or maybe some fruit, something like that.
What?
Some one of the recipes has got mango in it.
Oh, sorry, you said fruit.
Oh, what do you think I said?
I misheard you. I thought you said brute.
So, so why would you could you use lactic acid, say, to lower the pH?
I mean, it's a very good question. I don't see why not. I think the reason people use vinegar is it's more part of the profile of the sauce, the vinegariness, which you're not necessarily using in this one, in some of these recipes, but some people do, and it does give that kind of recognizable sriracha twang in it that maybe lactic wouldn't.
Well, lactic has its own taste itself, doesn't it? So
It does,
perhaps
yeah.
that's too much of perhaps that would be too much of that.
It might
taste.
be, yeah. But all these hot sauce people use star san and everything like that as well. It's all the same stuff that we do. I say we, like us and them. The same that everyone else does. But yeah, vinegar to drop the pH. Cider vinegar is nicer. It blends better. Did I miss one out? I did, yeah. When you're bottling it, so after the pasteurizing, bottle it hot again, around 80 if possible. So you might need some gloves, a Pyrex jug, and a metal funnel. You can get jam funnels or like thinner funnels. And the idea is to sterilize the bottle, as it were, even though you probably should have sterilized the bottles already. I think I did do them all in the oven. I had trays of tiny miniature whiskey bottles in the oven. Anyway. But one of the other reason it's you want to bottle it hot is that once it's in there, you'll need to sanitize the top, like the lid, the inside of the lid. So the trick is to invert the bottle for a few minutes or something like that, so that it seals and sanitizes or / sterilizes. I know they're different things. The inside top bit, so that it remains safe and shelf stable, basically. And then let it cool down overnight before putting your fancy label on. That was the label for the wedding. So I thought I'd do a bit of promotion on the back with the brewery logo. Anyway, pasteurize, it will last for months or years. Unpasteurized, so if you put it basically straight out the blender into bottles, it's probably tastier and better for you with probiotics, but it'll re-ferment, so snaffle it quickly, eat it up. That's bottling and shelf life. Where are we?
Oh, Steve, can you
Yes.
go back one, please?
Sure.
How did you do that? The cover to the top. That black
Yes.
That
stuff?
heat shrink.
It is a heat shrink, yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I just realised what it was. I thought, oh, it's a bit of heat.
Yeah. So I got these bottles from a bottle place called Senses, with a middle S as a 5. And I'll stick the link in at the end of the presentation. In fact, Daz, I'm going to redo the final slide before we could put it up on the site, because I'll put in all the links properly. I didn't get to finish it off. But they supply the heat shrinks as well. And I've got a gas hob, and I put it on the very lowest, on the very smallest gas ring, and just roll. You can't see it, can you? And then just roll the lid like horizontally in the gas, and it just.
One of those hot air guns, the paint
Yeah.
stripper versions, were on a low setting do that well, because you can just buy that stuff in rolls.
Yes, yeah. It's like a hairdryer hot enough.
Yeah, I imagine on hot setting. Yeah,
Yeah,
but certainly a hot air gun.
yeah.
Or I mean, not that I'd use that, but a cigarette lighter will do the smaller stuff. But I think that's a bit. A candle would probably be a good option as well.
Yeah, as I say, even the lowest on the gas, not even in it, just above it.
Yeah, I reckon a candle is nice.
Yeah, candle.
Well, I
Scented
think that Phil, you're able to put your hairdryer to some use now.
There's always one. Okay, nearly there. A couple more slides. So byproduct, as in a byproduct. So the mash. I was saying earlier that once you've sieved the sauce through, so you've got a nice smooth sauce in your saucepan that you may or may not pasteurize, but you've got all this kind of dried mash essentially with the seeds and the pulp of the peppers left in your sieve or in your food mill. Dry it out in the oven, a bit like drying fresh hops for a beer, and then when it's dry, either grind it up, and it's amazing. I swear, it's so good. It's not anywhere near as hot as the hot sauce that comes out of the bottle. It's got this amazing, big, flavorful warmth to it. Obviously, depending how much you put in your chili or whatever you're putting it in. It's really good. It's amazing, and you get enough to kind of last for a few months, depending on how liberal you are with it. But that's a great byproduct. Again, that's shown in the video a little bit later, I think. If not, I'll stick a link in the final slide. And I think we're on to some quick recipes. So on this one, I've done a very simple recipe for just a few bottles, or you can have it in a jar if you haven't, just pop it in a jar. So the first ones I did were like a 1 liter jar, like 250 grams of chilies, red chilies for the sriracha, so it's a nice color. A pepper for the sugars, and in the following recipe, there's also carrots in there because carrots are full of sugar, and that gives a lot of sugar for the lactobacillus to work on and to help reduce the pH to the right level as well. So it also bulks it out, gives it a nice flavor, and it gives it a nice texture, especially the carrot, to be honest. And it's cheap carrot as well, and the color's right as well. So it gets used a lot. Probably a head of garlic. I mean, for this amount, chuck the garlic in if you like garlic, because it smells good, tastes nice. Again, 3.5% brine, unchlorinated water to cover the whole lot. Fill the jar up like quite high, smallish headspace. Cover it up. 4 weeks. Come back. Whoosh it up, and the above process should be good. And then this second one was a bit more later on in my understanding of how things work. The first time I did a one with mango diligently, and God, and for the wedding I swear to God, I chopped up 15 pineapples. If only I'd known. So for the Scotch bonnet and mango, if only I'd known about using mango pulp out of a tin for £2.50 down the Asian supermarket, man, that's a lifesaver, I tell you. So you don't need to go and squeeze all the mangoes in the shop and then have an old lady tap you on the shoulder or anything. Or the young man who was the produce manager, or lady. 2 litre jar for this one. Tin of mango pulp. This was 20 Scotch bonnets. I did 2 heads of garlic, 2 bell peppers. So there's more of it. So it's basically double the amount. I put the percentages in there because it's roughly the same for all this stuff. And I know that some people prefer percentages with a grain bill as well, and it's not dissimilar. So 50% Scotch bonnet, 40% kind of bulking, colory, sugary, extra ingredients, and then 10% garlic is probably, that will get you there. And again, 3.5% brine. It doesn't add up to 100%, but whatever. And that'll get you like, that got me, I think, 4 bottles of that stuff. And it was all right. It was pretty good. Do you want to watch the video? Because I realized I didn't have enough. I've got it in. Full screen, full screen. This 5 minutes, if you've got any patience. Or is there any questions first? Sorry. I can fast forward a little bit. It's already sped up and it does the whole process in like 5 minutes, just so you can visualize what I've been nattering.
One question, Steve, I wanted to ask if I could. You said about using some of the brine, and I just wondered what the brine actually tastes like. Could you?
Yeah, it's all right. It's hot, and a bit salty and a bit sour. I mean, it's pretty nice, and it's good for
seasoning or something like that.
Good for what? Say
for seasoning.
Yeah, it's great, and it keeps. Yeah, it's good in whatever you imagine it might work well in. Can't remember off the top of my head now. I only used it a couple of times, but it's pretty tasty.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely usable. And yeah, that was the other byproduct I forgot to put on that slide: the mash and then the brine. You can top up your, I don't know, chili or curry or something like that, maybe with a bit of brine. I'm not sure it would exactly match, but certainly some recipes will take it. It was pretty tasty. It's pretty nice.
Okay.
Or you can drink 2/3 of a pint of it.
Steve,
Yes.
What was it when you said you were filling these little bottles? So presumably getting the consistency to something that's usable. Because I've noticed sometimes with chili sauces, they're a pain in the backside to get out of the bottle.
Yes.
The point where you turn the thing upside down, the next thing you know, you've got sort of 100 ml of stuff on your plate. So getting those bottles filled, how did you manage that?
I did it with a funnel. It's actually a plastic funnel and a Pyrex jug, and I put all the bottles in a undo that screen. Can you? Because I was doing my hands and I realized you probably couldn't see me. I put them all like on a tray so they all stood up so that I could do it all quite quickly. So I was literally scooping the Pyrex jug. Actually, I might have done ladle from the saucepan into the Pyrex jug. That's what I did. And then poured it through the little funnel above the bottle so it didn't make a vacuum, just so there was an air gap and it went in. But you're right. There was a couple of I think maybe the first or the second time I did it, it was too thick, it wouldn't come out. Because I put the dropper inserts inside the lid as well as the normal black lid. And it's too thick, it just wouldn't come out. So half the time I flicked off the little inside dropper thing anyway and got rid when it was too thick. But I think the other time I poured them all back into the saucepan and thinned it out and then stuck it all back in again.
So what were you filling it out with? Just
some more brine.
Right, yeah.
So I kept the brine, basically. It was pretty handy, and I kept loads of it in the fridge for ages, and I kept thinking, let's use it for something.
Steve, have you tried doing the same sort of recipe that you've tried where you've fermented it without doing the fermentation process. The reason I ask is because I've been making hot sauce for about 5 years or something now.
Oh, have you?
But I haven't tried fermenting it yet. And I'm
Okay.
sure some of the advantages would be that it would last longer. And the
Mm.
recipe I've been using, which is sort of loosely based on Incona, uses
Right.
quite a bit of sugar and salt, which I cut down on, but they've added that to preserve it. Yeah, I just wondered
Okay.
if you tried it without and what you fit the differences in terms of taste.
Do you mean just blitzing them all up the raw
Yeah,
ingredients?
so yeah, sort of making sure the chilies are dried out or cooked a
Yeah.
bit. and
I
yeah,
think I
blitzing it
did
on.
actually. The very first time, I think I did that just to see. But you're exactly right. This when I did the fermented version, it was the difference between using like a proper beer lacto, fully complex, funky flavor, as against, and nothing wrong with them, but again, as against it like a Philly sour kind of thing. It was much more complex and kind of deep and flavory, and there's not and rounded and all of those tangy things, funky.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I've done it both ways, and I would agree. The lacto fermentation makes it just more full.
Yes, it's a bit moreish as well. Yeah. Right, shall I give this a quick whirl so you can visualize, and then this is it. Then I'm done. But this is maybe just like a summing up, and I'll talk over him as well. Sanitizing everything. I don't know. I can't remember. I can't see what he's using there, but this is the principle more than anything. I think he's probably sterilized those first and then sanitized them like a good person afterwards. Chop them up. Oh God, yeah. Chop the stems off. Didn't put that. Sorry. Get rid of the stems. Also, probably chop them in half. Oh, there it is. Very good. And check on the insides, because some do have some mold on the inside. And if you've got any that are any signs of mold, like green or anything, like just bin them, because it will screw up the whole thing and make it go moldy, like we saw earlier. I'm going to drop them a line and say, get a tin of pulp, mate. Because, yeah, don't want to be doing that all day. But it works. It's absolutely fine, and it's nice and fresh. But the tinned was exactly the same. It was really good. And was probably the equivalent of like a dozen mangoes or something. I don't know. Really look. Okay, I mean, we all do things different ways, but he's scooping out the last bits with a cup, like you do. Let's put the brine in first. Is that the brine going in? I can't see my things in the way. For weighing the brine, weigh a litre of water and then add 35 grams of salt and stir it up. There you go. Chuck your veg in, fill it to the top, put a weight on the top. With that, those quite big chunks of stuff, so maybe don't chop everything up too small, so that it doesn't escape around the edges of your glass weight. Put a little airlock on. La-di-da, 2 weeks or several weeks. Garlic does a weird thing. It goes blue. Oh, there it is. There you go. It goes blue. And everyone's like, blue garlic, what's going on with my blue garlic? And everyone is like, oh, don't worry, it's fine. And it is, but it's just quite entertaining that it goes blue. So it's finished fermenting. Check it out. Separate them out. Sorry, it was the words I'm after there. Blend them up. Go on. There's some great like semi-pro hot sauce guys and girls on YouTube, some fantastic channels, really great stuff, all kinds of different recipes, and slightly different methods and all that kind of thing. I think he's put some black balsamic in there that made it go. It looks like a oxidized Nipah now. But anyway. It's always very tasty, but you can put anything you like in as well, which is the other thing. Lovely. Experiment like we do. Civvy. I don't see any. Are there seeds coming out? Yeah. So you get a nice smooth sauce if you sieve it and like strain it like that. But that stuff that's left, that's in the sieve, is just taken off. Yeah, medium low heat for 15 minutes. But being the good scientists that we are, and thanks Jennifer for putting the chart up. Definitely worth doing the chart, especially if one day you want to sell it, of course, because it has to be food safe and all of that. It doesn't need to bubble, don't think. In fact, I try not to let it bubble, but keep the heat up just so it doesn't, I don't know, impair the flavour. Well, I can't quite see the top, but there you go. Through a funnel. I don't know if he, I'm saying he's got hairy arms. If he inverts the bottles there. Oh, here we go, heat shrink. Revlon. There you go, Phil. If you've got a Revlon, you're in. He didn't invert the bottles, but it's quite a good practice. It helps to seal the top. But he's pasteurized it, so should be safe, but you know, you never know. Oh, like it's leapt to the next in the playlist. But this guy Chili Chump is fantastic. He's really great. He's a South African guy, lives in the UK now, and he's got greenhouses full of it. And no doubt this is him. I'm just going to flick through. Yeah, someone else's.
He's the guy who does the really hot stuff, isn't he? I've seen one or two of his.
He does, yeah. He I saw him call his brother in and give him this really, shall I stop sharing my screen? There's now matey bubble bath on there. All right, I'm back in the room. But I'll redo that last slide and put links to there's a guy called ATX Texas hot sauce or something like that, and he's not dissimilar to the Chili Chump guy. And then there's a couple going to go from California or South America. I can't remember what they were, but they're hilarious. They're super smiley and shiny. They're quite entertaining.
So what are other good fruits to stick with the chilies then? Or have people done? I mean, presumably people have done wacky things. Have they sort of put oak chips in them, or?
I think I've seen people mention oak chips on the that Facebook group I dropped that picture in on.
Right.
And I'll stick that link on the slide, but I'll send it around as well, as soon as you're all here.
Was that the vintage lot? I was like, there was a lot who, it was as if they claimed they were possibly the first. There was one of the Facebook groups that you showed earlier on. So.
I think it's just the hot fermented sauce society.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of them though. There's ones for beginners, one for middle, the usual business like we all have. The main ones I've seen though are like mango and pineapple. I'm not. I did a cherry sriracha. Sriracha, I think it was called. Terrible. Which was quite nice. It was very dark purple. That was an early one though, and I think I cooked all the flavour out of it, and fermented all the flavour out of it, and then cooked all the flavour out of it. So I've yet to kind of perfect getting the flavour through and balanced in the final product.
Oh, the other thing was you mentioned using carrot in the. I mean, could you presumably use other carbohydrate-rich vegetables? So you could use beetroot or something if you.
Yes, I think I've seen someone do a beetroot one. and probably parsnips. I don't know. Would it work?
Well, I mean, it was just that you were saying that the carrot added carbohydrates to
Yeah.
feed the lacto, and
Yeah,
therefore presumably sticking bits of carbohydrate.
Beetroot would work.
Yeah, beetroot would be really nice.
Lovely colour too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. I think there's so many videos of it, of people doing their own weird things with it. But yeah, sometimes the ingredients it's like the same as all home brewing things. Everyone's got myriad of slightly different versions, ways of doing it, and kind of what I try and find to do, and probably lots of other people do that as well, is just go and pick the best of bits of advice and glue them all together in your own method, kind of thing.
I mean, presumably you haven't got the space, but I mean, at least with something like chilies, it's something you can actually grow a reasonable number of off one plant. So
I think
they're
so.
actually something that's it's possible to make a reasonable amount of sauce out of something you can grow in your back garden.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think you need that many, because if you're adding some like cheap carrots to it and brine to fill it out, you can probably get, I don't know, half a litre of a medium plant or something.
We grew, as did Raf, chili plants this year.
Okay.
That we were given.
That's the result.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you did it.
Yeah.
Right. And there were
Oh, look,
probably...
everyone's brought them along. That's the whiskey miniature one. And
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
the normal one. They were for like wedding favour on the table.
Yeah.
So how
So
many of those?
weirdly.
How many of those bottles did you fill?
Of the little ones, 160, I think. Oh no, it was, took an afternoon.
Yeah.
But
Well, we got...
Anybody drinking it at the wedding?
some did, yeah. Oh, weirdly, so the wedding was like down Windsor, like where they live, not in the castle. But and there were a bunch left over, so some people scooped them up in a box and took them home. My nephew's wedding it was, scooped up a load, and so did various other people. And then about 2 weeks later, my sister's boyfriend was in a pub down that way somewhere, having like food in the pub kind of thing. And he was like, "Oh, have you got any hot chili sauce?" Because I'd been making it for them. They like really liked it. And and the guy went, "Oh yeah, we have got some." And he came back out with and John was like, "What the Dickens?" It's going on YouTube. What the Dickens are you doing with that? Where did you get that? And apparently, like some guys from the wedding, like went there, staying there on the weekend, and like down for the wedding, and scooped a few up and like left them behind. So he stuck them behind the bar. And not only that side, but there's not on this one, but on the other side was the picture of the bride and groom with like the little message thing. He didn't even take them that one. That was quite entertaining. No one else would have known except like him.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, Steve,
I've got a.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I've got a bit of kit to show. At the local Asian grocery store. I walked into an area that I don't usually go, and so I saw they had kimchi fermenters, a little plastic bin with a lid. Things flip down on the side. But the really neat thing is they do kimchi in this, and this is the smallest one they had. But they have this little lid on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's got a silicone edge that that deflexes. And so what it does is it keeps all of that veg and everything down inside, and you can squeeze it down fairly far if you've got a small batch, or raise it up towards the top.
So you're essentially keeping it below the level of the brine.
Yeah, this presses down and pushes down. I did the glass jar with the glass weight and things and airlock and things, but this was much easier to keep all the veg underneath the brine, and then put the lid on top, and hardly any smell at all
Yeah.
coming from it, a little bit maybe, but
So does
this
the
is
brine come out of the middle lid? Does the brine come above that lid? Or is
no,
it
well,
the
it
whole
does a
thing?
little bit through the center.
Sure. But you
It
at
does
least
have
know,
a little pop valve kind of a
Right.
thing
that's
that
when you know you've pushed it down far enough.
you've got it. Yeah, you've got it down far enough. You see a little bit of liquid taken out of there. But this one is, like I said, the smallest one, and it says 6,300 milliliters. So they can get quite big. You know, I'm assuming for kimchi.
Sure. Yeah. I saw
But
some
I
videos
thought that
of people
was,
making kimchi. They get really messy hands. It's
yeah.
terrible.
But I thought that was a really neat,
That's
neat bit of
great.
kit. That
Never seen
yeah,
one
it just
before.
yeah.
And so you could do chili sauce in it, of course.
Yeah.
And how much was that? Well,
This
Yeah, of course we
was
can't get them. Yeah.
No.
Nah,
oh, yeah, no,
this
you're-
was $35, so maybe 20 quid but I don't know the
Huh.
exchange rate.
yeah.
They weren't like super cheap,
Yeah.
but it was a specialty store, so
yeah.
I think the exchange rate is a little different now. It's about 1.2.
Yeah, it's more like 30 quid.
okay.
Found it on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's 28 quid.
Oh yeah, they're in.
Oh.
Kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles. That's good.
What, somebody
£70.
found one, did you say?
Yeah, on Amazon.
Yeah, a few on Amazon, like in the high 20s, low 30s.
Yeah.
Pound
Yeah.
range.
Nice. All
Oh,
right.
nice one. Okay.
That's good. I think I forgot to put a picture in one of the slides because I've got there's another way of doing the veg to start with. So instead of chopping it all up and putting it under a brine, you can mash all the ingredients to begin with. So for example, just the garlic and the chilies a bit, and then mix in half of your salt, so half of your 3.5% by weight of the vegetables, mix it in, and then sprinkle the rest on the top, and then that makes that really suppresses all the pathogens as well. And I think what essentially the advantage is that you could then it takes up less space. Just a different way of doing it. I did have a picture of one.
Like for sauerkraut, you tend to not put any water, do you? You can just, I did it recently, so salt and the cabbage, and that should just give you, it gives you brine. Like if you leave it 15 minutes, you kind of
it's amazing.
massage it in.
Yeah. It's amazing how much it draws it all out.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I know it's James promoted it as lots of other fermenting things, but would have been here till 10 o'clock.
What's your go-to chili then? Because presumably strength of chilies and size must have some sort of.
I've only really used two types so far, like the cayenne ones you get, the big long red, relatively mild ones you get on in the grocery store. You seem to kind of get everywhere, and then the Scotch bonnet, just because there's more bang for your buck a little bit, really. And they're a bit fruity, and they've got a nice flavour. And in recipes, that sriracha is quite a lot less fruity, as it were, than the one that's got mangoes in it. Of course, you know what I mean. They're distinctly different. But
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, your choice of chili is going to make a lot of difference on the on what you end up with.
I suppose there's nothing to stop you mixing them as well, is there?
Oh yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's not a smash, is it? Doesn't have
It's
to
not.
be.
Yeah, it's a very good. No, it's a very good point. Lots of people do mix them all up as well for exactly that reason. Layer up your chilies.
And presumably you can chuck in various spices and things here and there.
I think so. I can't remember what the
cumin seeds are used a lot. Oh, ground.
Do they get fermented? Do they go in fermenting them?
Well, they can. We use well, yeah. I was wondering about coriander, for instance.
I wonder again if they're better toasted and then gone in the blend after the ferment.
Oh, that was a question. If you were using one of the Blitz all blenders, you're not going to end up with any mash out of that, are you?
I know exactly.
So,
you're missing out there.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, so I got a medium one off eBay for the wedding because otherwise it was going to get cramped doing that with a spoon. But it's about 100 quid instead of 200. And it doesn't do the whole thing. There's not that many seeds in this one actually.
I don't
yeah,
like
you're right. As soon as I kind of done it, I thought, well, I'm missing out on the mash bit really, because then you got like this really nice chili powder. I swear to God, it's so good. It's bonkers. It's really nice, and it's not a killer.
You say you can dry that out.
Yeah, just dry the mash out like on a greaseproof paper, like Kvike, or drying your hops out. Essentially, so many parallels I keep dropping in, but there are. It's essentially the same thing. It's like thousands of years old fermenting food and fermenting brewing, fermenting beer, because it's preserving the glut of the harvest, isn't it? So that's, I guess, where it's all
something at one time of the year, and you want to use it some other time of the year. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, make beer out of it. That'll last a while. Or the chili sauce, or any of the.
And of course, you can use this chili sauce. Well, variants of that in your beer. You can, of course, add your.
I toyed with doing it that way. Mash Gang, the low alcohol guys, did a low alcohol chili sauce. They did a hot sauce, and they used with beer in it. I was like, I don't know if I want to put beer in the chili sauce because it might muck it up. And then because it's just because you're a brewery making something else, you don't need to put beer in it necessarily. I wouldn't put beer in gin if I was distilling gin or whatever.
Well, didn't
it might be amazing, to be fair.
We got a beer, the leftovers from Lab, and one of them was with chili.
Oh, okay.
The other way around.
But I think chili beer.
That's what you were saying, isn't it? Okay.
You've seen the hopped sauces, Steve?
Say, Mark?
The hopped sauces, HOPT, I think it is.
Oh,
so
okay.
I got, so they do various blends with beer. I think I got one with an Imperial Stout on the go at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're talking about adding beer to the sauce,
Yeah, I'm not sure how the Mash Gang people did it. I couldn't really taste it, to be honest. I think they even listed the hops, whatever it's Citra and Mosaic, and it's like, it's quite hot enough. I can't distinguish anything else. HOPT, did you say, man?
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yes.
Yeah, I just looked them up. I found a cherry chocolate stout chili sauce.
Okay, I mean, you have to try it. Oh, no. So, who else is a hot sauce maker? Because I think there are a few. James Harris does it. Who's got a waxed moustache as well. You guys are doing it down in Tunbridge Wells. Someone else does it. I remember it was. James is doing it then.
Raf's actually doing it in East Ham, but I'll let you on.
Oh, okay, you're in.
And also, he hasn't tried the actual fermenting up to this point. It's just been the cheating preservation of just chucking sugar and salt at it,
Yeah.
So, which is, as you were saying earlier on, it's a cheap and cheerful way of making, and something that actually
Really
doesn't
nice.
last that well. I mean, I think those, even the,
It lasts all right as long as you're quite careful with
the fridge, though.
sanitizing it and how you dish it out. But
I've never made any, but I'm going to have a go. It looks like it could be fun.
Yeah, and I think it's relatively low entry pain threshold.
Well, with the weather
Catching gear.
with the weather being what it's been recently, chilies are dead easy to grow. So
Well, this week a whole second batch just started growing on the old plant. I spoke to them. Seems to be they must think it's next year already.
One
I
of
do
our
have a chili
potted
plant. It's
apples.
absolutely loaded with fruit, but they're all green. They haven't ripened.
Really?
I don't
Oh,
know.
our plants have got about 25 on them, on each one.
Oh no! How many have you got?
Those of them.
Cool.
Got loads of fruit, but it's all green. It's supposed to be red, but it's
Ours
just
went
stayed
red
green.
quite quickly.
Mine took a while to go red, but stuck them in the freezer.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges I found making chili sauce is trying to find a sort of balance that you like in terms of tolerance and how much you like putting on your food. Because as I said, I was using a recipe basically loose on Incona that I found was far more ferocious than standard Incona. And if you are happy to just have the tiniest drop on your plate, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But I tend to prefer having a little bit more, in which case you need
Gives you
to
more
then
of the
dilute
flavour,
it
but-
down or find a different
Yeah.
chili blend that
well, Steve, the recipe that the second recipe you put up, that had quite a lot of other stuff. I mean, was it 50%?
Mango.
Yeah, I mean, it was at least 50% fruit and other stuff, wasn't it?
Yes. Just looking at it. To be honest, I didn't weigh them.
But they're roughly. I mean, you're
I
talking
read-
about something which is
Yeah.
bulking out those really strong peppers with some mango and
Yeah, carrot. And yes, it was with carrot and normal bell peppers, and then a big tin of mango pulp.
yeah. So that's quite a lot of bulking up.
Yeah, plus some brine as well.
Whereas if you were making one with, say, pure, I don't know, Nagras or something.
Yeah, this one was Scotch bonnet. They're pretty hot.
Yeah. Well, that's what Ruff did.
when I was picking up a bag from the local Turkish shop, some guy
Mm.
on a bicycle went past and said, "They're effing hot, they are."
But you've never put anything else in except the chilies, have you? Ruff?
Garlic, I sometimes
Yeah,
use.
but I mean, you've never bulked it up with fruit or bell peppers or anything.
Not
So no
with fruit,
wonder it's
no.
so blooming hot, and I can't eat it.
But yeah, it's the same as brewing, isn't it? The trial and error is half the fun, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that stuff the media gave me nearly killed me. I think that was Carolina Reaper chili stuff. Pointless.
Anyway, that's the sum of my knowledge. I've only just really got started, but don't know. It's good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like hot sauce. And I will say, I think the same that I discovered with beer is that my tolerance threshold either dropped or increased, and you know what I mean, though, right? It became less hot, and I could drink more beer, and I can eat lots more hot sauce than I used to. So one of these days, I have to dial some of those off and reset back to normal. But yeah,
It's a slippery slope, isn't it? You start with Tabasco and then you work up.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you found the same thing that you gave it to sort of bits, friends and the family and stuff, they were like, "Can you just make me some more? Can you make some more?" But it was nice to know, and it's quite good fun to work out how it works and do it.
But it's good it happens that way, Steve, with people asking for it rather than people saying he stinks.
Giving it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've still got some from the last batch. Don't worry. Yeah. Right.
Cool, thanks for that.
Steve, is that
Right.
your presentation?
That is it. That's
that's brilliant. Well done.
Thanks for your question.
Cheers, Steve. That was awesome.
Cheers, Steve.
Thanks. I hope it was useful. Sorry, there was no beer involved.
Okay. When it comes to other things that we might be making of a similar ilk, What experiences are there out there?
Up to the floor, yeah.
Well, like, who's got a meth lab running?
Right. Is it going on YouTube?
Not that bit.
No.
Has anyone done the sourdough or anything? That's
Oh, yeah.
obviously on the list for.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, it's on my list to do. I've got a friend
Uh-huh.
who makes the best sourdough bread that I've ever tasted.
Oh wow!
Delicious. And I've asked her to send the recipe because it's just so good. I could have eaten the whole loaf when we were down there.
But she talks about keeping the culture.
Well, you do.
Yeah,
That's how you do it.
It's
Yeah.
like a pet.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
Keep
But you
feeding.
need to introduce a guest presenter, and perhaps it could be your friend Jennifer.
Yeah. Well, if you want a sourdough one, I'll get her to do it.
That would
But
be good.
I did say that once we're going on holiday next week. But when we come back, I will start doing sourdough because I've just got to get bread as good as hers.
Yeah. Any chance that she might give you some of her starter?
Well, that's a point. Yeah, I
Yeah,
could
if it's
ask
so
her.
good, because it'll take you a while to get to that point,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I would
And if
imagine.
she's got a good
yeah.
one there, because she's likely to have more than she's going to need anyway. Well, I don't really know.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, it's like yeast. You get more than you need.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it keeps
worth a
growing.
try.
I
Yeah.
was thinking that because Mark has decided that no one else is winning the beer competition at Bexley, might as well get into the bread competition.
I think you'll find Phil is the holder of the trophy there. Isn't that right, Phil?
Yes.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Well, what
There you
John
go.
said, if it's not Mark, it's Phil. If it's not Phil, it's Mark. Right? Get into bread.
Oh,
I'd be well into
yeah.
a sourdough presentation.
Or kombucha, even, for those who make that.
Oh yeah, you made some, right, Mark?
I brought some along to a
You did?
meeting a little bit
Bring
ago.
some in.
Oh well,
Really
your
good.
turn next month then. Jolly
I'll
good.
There's
bring
also
I'll bring me Scoby with me, my best pal.
Scooby Doo.
there is
I was
also
showing it to a
yogurt.
few people this weekend, and they were really frightened of it. It's like the Blob with
It
Steve
is like a
McQueen,
jellyfish.
except without Steve McQueen.
A good movie.
You can
Yeah,
get one
very
from
frightening.
Malt Miller, Scobie, not
Hey?
Steve McQueen. You can get one from Malt Miller. They sell a
Okay.
pre-done Scobie that works quite.
Oh yeah, you can go down the shop and buy hot sauce.
Yeah.
Missing the point, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I find because I got the Malt Miller one, and I found it took a little while to get any like real sourness from there. It was quite mild
Yeah.
for a couple of generations.
When I kicked off, it took quite a few weeks to develop and get anything out of it, and then it went mental. It was a little bit on the sour side.
All right, I like it sour.
Mm.
Yeah, when I did the sourdoughs, I got really fed up of the kneading, and I think I just got so angry with it. I just put it all, the very, very, very wet dough, straight into a Dutch oven and let it prove. And hey, it came out looking like a cake, but suddenly it was game on. Like I was making like kilo loaves, like kilo of premix of like a kilo of flour, and then topped up with a big chunk, about 400, 500, 800 mils of starter.
Mm.
So that'd be like a week's worth of bread. All the hipsters that I worked with are like super jealous because this stuff was like really proper sour, like practically balsamic. And you know the whole like you throw out half the starter. Nah, saw that pancakes, mate. Sourdough pancakes.
Oh.
No waste products whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could. Yeah, the same kind of byproduct usage. With
Oh
sourdough.
yeah, there's an Irish guy on YouTube that does sourdough videos. He works in a bakery in Ireland, and it's absolutely fascinating. He just talks you through the whole process and explains everything. But yeah, and mentions what you can do with the sourdough that you have to throw away. The starter bit that you have to throw away each time.
Alpha and Omega, the starter and the finish. There's no waste product in our sourdough. It's great.
Oh, great.
Right.
And I used to do crazy stuff with my starters. Like I didn't quite freeze it. I think it came close to freezing a few times at the really cold spot at the back of the fridge. But you shove it a load of food and put it somewhere really cold, and you could leave it alone for a while, like a couple of weeks. So reactivate it after a couple of months. You know, the culture is going to become a little bit imbalanced. So I wouldn't be doing this with any precious sourdough, but it definitely, you can revive it after a while. And yeah, if it starts to go a little bit phenolic, yeah, I'd probably chuck it. But you know, it's you could do crazy stuff with it.
I think it's easy to get put off with sourdough for all of the fanning around you've got before you stick it in the oven. Because people are going to have a look at these videos. I think I know the one you mean with the Irish. Was it Irish, did you say?
Yeah.
And there are others out there as well where and you think, bloody hell, fire. They're messing around for so long, kneading it and all that sort of business. And is there a successful quick fire way for doing that, you wonder?
Well, that was my trick, straight into a Dutch oven. Or Le Crusoe would do too. You know, it's not going to have that nice loaf effect and clay on it, but you will have sourdough bread. And oh my God, it's toastable after 5 days. It's still good and real great tang on it.
Yeah, and you still got all your teeth.
Yeah, I'm the one with the good genes in that regard. Every single tooth, no fillings. I know it certainly wasn't healthy living.
What else do you ferment? What else? That's not beer. One day I've done it before, but I make Alka Pops. But that's for another time.
WKD. Can you do the blue one?
I'll do the blue one.
Yeah, the blue one.
I think I'd need some. I need some dye for that. But why not? What flavour is it?
I don't know. We had to buy a case of it because my daughter was doing the Edinburgh Fringe, and they needed a whole case of WKD, the blue one, to use in her performance.
That's WD-40.
That's to grease the audience.
Right.
Put some blue curacao into it. That'd probably do it.
Yeah.
No, I make it out of Robinson's fruit and barley.
And so, what do you do?
So that stuff has got sweetener in it, which will remain because it won't ferment. Yeah, so you can boil it up with water, wine yeast, bit of some other gunk goes in it, the nutrient for the yeast, and it's extremely simple. And just ferment it. Add sugar, yeah, of course, and tend to make it about 4%, something like that. But it comes out absolutely cracking. So people love it. They do.
Oh.
Very, very.
I've had
very
that
nice.
one. It is
I
nice.
find it a bit sweet, but there are those that absolutely love it.
A bit of blue fruit colouring, and you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to. My favourite one is the pink grapefruit. That comes out a lovely, shocking pink. Well, not shocking, but pinkish. Yeah.
I have a bunch of friends who like ciders. I'm not really bothered about ciders. They're okay, but they all have different tastes. So some like a dry cider, some like a mango cider, some like different ciders anyway. But I tend to just make a very simple dry cider, just using fruit juice, apple juice from the supermarket, cartons of, and a bit of yeast. I just use beer yeast. It's the same, SO4, SO5, USO5, something like that. Something that's fairly neutral, and you get a very clean, very dry cider. And then at
How
the
dry,
point of
how dry is that coming out at? Sort of pretty dry then. From
yeah, I think that the last batch that I made was it finished at 6% with a final gravity of 1003. So it's pretty dry. And at the point of dispense, put some flavouring in the glass, cordial. The best ones are things like apple and mango or cherry, maybe blackcurrant. You can also use caramel to get a kind of toffee apple flavour. And then just fill it up with cider, and they love the bloody stuff.
Yeah, I've got some of that on the go at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, tell us about your the Bexley competition. Come on, let's hear your story.
Yeah. So there was a guy there who had like single varietal homegrown cider apples pressed on the premises, bottled, and he came second to my Asda Smart Price. You're like, oh mate, sorry.
But you don't need to do all that stuff, do you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it comes out all right. Bit of tea for the tannins.
That's right. Yeah, sorry, yes, I didn't mention that. Yes, yeah.
It's a nice little bit of pomegranate juice to round it out. Actually, I've got some going at the moment. I'll see if I can, talking about how dry it is, I'll see if I can share my brew brain thing. 0.853 at the moment.
That's bone dry.
That's pretty dry, is it? I'm hoping that's a calibration area because it's still going as well.
I wonder what that special reserve stuff was from the Somerset cider bus.
Yeah. That's going to float off in a minute.
Yeah. It's quake yeast as well, which tends to give quite an interesting, because with the supermarket apple juice, you don't get a lot of character from it. So you have to sort of fiddle with expressful yeast. But yeah, but that's much lower than I thought it would be.
That's amazing. Oh,
yeah, I think that's about
in the recipe for
12%
that
now. But isn't like
Yeah,
pure
I think
ethanol
you're
is like 0.7? So I don't know.
I'm hoping there's a calibration error there. There must be,
Yeah.
surely. That's low.
Yeah.
I don't even seen a wine that low.
No. I like even like just sugar, just fermenting sugar in water doesn't come out that low. Yeah. Still bubbling, so
what does adding tea do?
like tannins. If you make like really strong, a really strong cup of tea, basically, put it in, it gives you that like the mouthfeel bite.
What are you talking, like one strong cup of tea to 20 litres, or?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, I think.
And as tea, just
yeah.
without
Obviously no
milk, obviously.
But like 4 or 5 tea
no
bags in a
milk.
cup.
Why was it
six
added
tea
again?
They
bags.
used to use it in wine making, just to add tannins to a wine.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were about to say that.
Tea, the same thing, same way.
Yeah, it sort of helps
just
to balance it as well.
Just a litre of boiling water, 5 tea bags, leave it for 10 minutes. Take the tea bags out, you don't need to put those in. And then tip the tea in.
Or the milk and sugar. Any particular
Nice
tea?
a lemon if you're posh.
Yorkshire Gold or Asda? All right.
It's all sponsored by Asda, so.
Is that your kombucha, Mark? Up there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, fermented tea. There you go.
Fermented tea. I had some when you bought some in. It was really nice. It took some getting used to. I wasn't used to it. I might give that a go.
It can take some people by surprise. Yeah, when it strips their enamel off.
Is it particularly dry drink then?
It's still got quite a bit of sweetness in there. It's a funny mixture. It's very because depending on how long you keep it down, and it will change very much day by day. It's a little bit cider vinegary,
Right.
in one sense, with a bit of the sweetness still left in there. So it's a mixture of things, but yeah, dry. Yeah, can it be dry and you get the sense of the sweetness at the same time? It's an odd one. Probably shouldn't do.
I mean, it's
should
all actually because, of course, in brewing, you're trying to avoid tannins that sort of, it's during the sparge, there's people go on about adding tannins by sort of like sparging at the wrong temperature, all this sort of stuff. So to avoid those flavors, which in something else that you're drinking side by side, you want the tannins in it.
Well, I fancy having a go at making some ginger beer as well at some point.
I made some recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a batch recently.
How did it work out then?
It was, I mean, I liked it, but it was very, very dry. I didn't add any extra sugars or anything like that once I'd made it. So I think it was a relatively low percent. I think it was probably about 2.5% or something. But I think all the sugars had been eaten up, and so yeah, it was very dry. So it was, for those who didn't like it like that, you could add a bit of maple syrup or something to sweeten it slightly. But I mean, it worked perfectly fine. It was very gingery. I used a recipe that used an awful lot of ginger. The first time I made it, I skimped a bit on the amount of ginger in it. Yeah, wasn't nearly strong enough on that front. But yeah, it just came out very, very dry.
I made a load of
ginger plant,
doing an actual full mash. So a lot of the ginger was used pretty much the same way you use hops. So ginger is going into the boil. One batch I even bravely dry hopped with raw ginger. And the effect was quite good. I mean, I wouldn't trust its flavor stability or bacterial stability over time, but it was, I tried quite a lot of different approaches with it. And like I said, you get enough sweetness just from your beer to just balance out the ginger. Like if you make it all with ginger and various carbs, it's going to dry out completely. But, some of the batches were like really nice. Didn't last long as soon as my friends discovered it,
How do you keep the sweetness up?
It's just a mash, it's barley.
We're using some, I was going to say, using some malt. The one I did, actually, I should have said, didn't use any.
It was all malt. So I was just making a pale ale, and instead of citra, I was using ginger.
Yeah, that seems like a better way of making ginger beer.
Yeah, it came out.
Sounds more like beer to me.
Yeah, because I'd made it with sugar before and had all the kind of comments that other people mentioned. It dries out and it's hard to retain flavor in it.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, there's no reason. Most people make ginger beer with sugar because they're not into doing mashes. It's not because they haven't made that a better way of doing it. So yeah, right.
No, actually, pure malt extract. I think I tried that once. Dry or liquid. For the people who can't be bothered to go the full hog and mashing, it works as well.
We used to do that at school. We used to make ginger beer at school. It was one of about 3 things that I learned, extracurricular stuff. So
making fireworks was the other one.
Fireworks, yes. We made fireworks. We made darts. They were quite good. You take the little plastic bit on the end of your shoelace and about 1/2 inch of the lace, then just tease out the lace.
Called an aglet.
An aglet, that's the name for it, is it? And then you push a needle through from the back. So you've got the bit of the lace that you've teased out, you've got the plastic bit, and then you've got the needle sticking out the front of that. And then you take the refill bit out of a Bic pen and they stick in quite nicely.
Nice one.
Used to have those hanging out of their head and arms. Yeah, anyway, the ginger
The
beer, getting
elephants
back
that
to the
you
point.
tranquilise.
The ginger beer we used to make with a bit of yeast and ginger and sugar, and you feed it every day with another spoon of ginger, another spoon of sugar, and you build a ginger beer plant. And at some point, you can actually share it with people, because that was one of the things that we used to do, was share it.
You got that gloopy, sort of gloopy stuff.
Yeah, it looks a bit like when you make a yeast starter and it's kind of settled down, and you get that. I'm not talking about on a stir plate, something like just when you put in a bottle or something and give it a shake and it all settles down, you get that yeast in the bottom. And it kind of looks a bit like that. And then once you've built up enough, you then just decant the liquid into a bottle, top it up with water, a bit more sugar, put the cap on, and that carbonates, and you've got quite fiery. You can put chilies in as well, actually, to make it even more fiery, and then you get a really nice ginger beer from that. And that's one of the things we learned at school. It was one of the kind of things that all the kids kind of passed on at school, as well as the dart and the fireworks. And towel flicking, that was the other skill that we learned at school.
Oh yeah, got quite good at that.
I can take one wing off a fly at 30 yards. Not really, I made that up.
In our chemistry class, we this is when we were about 14 or something. We made we distilled gin as part of our course, which was pretty good. Got the junipers for flavouring it, and then after so many weeks or what have you, we came round to the tasting of it, and he let us all have a go on it. But I could have sworn there must have been at least 5 litres more than he showed us at the end. I don't know what happened to it, but those were the days.
Yeah, not so much health and safety about them, was there?
No.
Well, I think it was. Well, it certainly was a part of the GCS, well, the O-level course was to do fermentation. So they'd get a little bit of yeast and some sugar solution and stick it in a little glass jar and basically, produce alcohol.
But how exacting was your teacher about the process?
Well, the thing is, the teacher was usually
what the end product was.
The teacher had just come back from the pub at lunchtime, the next door pub or whatever. So making a little bit of alcohol.
Right.
Our teacher took us to the pub. We were on a geology field trip up in the Yorkshire Dales, I think it was. And it was a rainy, miserable night. And he just said, "Do you know what, lads? Let's just go down the pub." Brilliant. Love that teacher. They don't make them like that anymore.
That's nice.
Mind you, we were staying in a hostel, and he was sleeping on the top bunk. In the middle of the night, he needed a pee, and he just swung his legs out and stood up, and the ground wasn't there.
Who did he hit?
Well, he hit himself on the ground, and then we had all the people from the wards, well, not wards, kind of dormitories around us, come to see what the hell was going on, and we had to leave the next day.
Having to leave under a cloud of shame, eh, Rob?
You can't get away with it anymore.
Have you tried?
My attorney has advised me not to talk about that.
Right, looks like it's time to go and get another beer.
It is, and then I'm going to have to leave you all. I need to get on with something. So, have fun, please.
We will.
Catch you all later.
Thanks very much, all.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah. Bye, everybody, and thanks, Steve, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That's good. That's good. I'll make some. I perhaps won't share it. You don't deserve that, but I'll make some.
Wow, we should put.
Can all bring along some hot sauce to a future event and ruin all our beers for the evening.
That's right. Destroy everyone's taste buds.
Yeah. I'm quite interested in the recipes for all the other ginger beers and sourdoughs and kombuchas and whatever else we've been sharing. There's quite a lot going on.
Well, it was good actually.
I
This thing ended up with just you talking about chilies, because that leaves it open for other talks about other fermentations.
Might be quite a nice side.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly going to give it a go. So, nice one. Yeah.
What was it saying for like a Hazenbrow thing or a club competition? Like ferment something that's not beer.
Yeah.
Like anything not beer. Like.
Because of course you can, if it's being preserved, then of course you don't have to have it ready for any particular date, sort of thing. It's not so date specific.
That's a great idea. I think I'll steal that for our club.
Yeah, I think ferment something that's not beer. Ferment something.
That's a good one. Yeah, we should do that. Be good for like a different a month's theme in person or something. Probably end up with a picnic out of it.
Yes.
Sourdough and ginger beer.